In 2011, Ross Ulbricht founded the Silk Road, an online black market that was designed to be the Amazon of the dark web. This platform for anonymous criminal activity quickly went from a startup to a billion-dollar company. And from the beginning, Ross Ulbricht was ready to make ruthless decisions in order to get where he was going. But was he prepared to kill a man in order to stay there? Today on Scream to Screen, we're going to take a deep dive into the true story of how the Silk Road was destroyed. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe to Graveyward Shift and let us know in the comments which true-life ghost stories you'd like us to cover in the future. In Silicon Valley, the future has become a business, and business looks bright, as long as you don't get in its way. It's become common for tech founders to do whatever they deem necessary to protect their visions of what the world could be. Whether that involves ugly legal disputes with axed co-founders, breaking laws and union regulations to get ahead, or even putting thousands of people out of work, the visionaries of technology have little regard for anything that doesn't fit their precise outlook on the world. Ross Ulbricht's vision for the future was no different, and perhaps only a little more dangerous. For those who are unaware, the Silk Road was named as an homage to the ancient trade route of the Han Dynasty. The site matched buyers to sellers, who would then ship their product right to your door. As easy as shopping online for a new book or a box of diapers, with only a small commission pocketed by Ulbricht and Silk Road in return. But of course, the products weren't as innocuous as books or diapers. Drug dealers quickly became the top vendors on the Silk Road. Ever inventive, adaptive, and entrepreneurial, the site was a natural fit for many dealers, especially those seeking to meet their clientele's new modern expectations for commerce. By 2013, Ulbricht was a very rich man, in command of a vast illegal and underground network. He was also about to face his first major setback. A Silk Road employee named Curtis Green, a family man in central Utah, had been arrested in a cocaine deal, and Ulbricht believed he'd stolen $350,000 of his money. Ulbricht operated on Silk Road under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, a reference to the 80s movie The Princess Bride, and under this moniker, he considered security to be of paramount importance. After the alleged theft, he consulted his advisor, a Silk Road employee who went by the handle Variety Jones. Variety Jones advised two simple solutions to their problem. One, they could pay a visit to the treasonous employee and attempt to scare him into returning the money. If that proved ineffective, they'd go to Plan B. They'd beat the man until he complied. While already trading in extremes, Ulbricht worried that neither of these methods would be enough. His site was based on trust and, perversely for a criminal organization, a sense of integrity. Honor among thieves, if you will. If word spread on the Silk Road that users could steal hundreds of thousands of dollars without retaliation, it might spur on like-minded individuals. After all, it was a site for rule breakers and criminals. How long could they be expected to behave? For days, Ulbricht mulled over what to do. Finally, he told Variety Jones he thought they needed to have Curtis Green killed. Ulbricht never intended for things to come to this. The Silk Road, like many startups, had begun as a simple college curiosity. In 2011, Ulbricht was just another smart, shy kid from Central Texas, traveling far away from his quiet hometown. He left Texas and attended Penn State University, studying materials science and engineering. Like many others who enter the technology business, he developed an affinity for both author Ayn Rand and libertarian philosophy. Like Uber co-founder and CEO Travis Kalanick, or early Facebook investor Peter Thiel, both fans of Ayn Rand's worldview, Ulbricht also defined himself with Rand's declaration, quote, "The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me." In political debate clubs on campus, a young Ulbricht was fixated on the seeming contradictions in how the U.S. government determined what was and what wasn't legal. His pontifications often came in the guise of common-sense-style arguments. He would ask, why is it that fast food often led to diabetes and heart disease, but McDonald's and KFC weren't illegal? Why was it that cars were the cause of tens of thousands of casualties every year, yet they too weren't illegal? Finally, why were alcohol and cigarettes, known to be the cause of death for millions, still perfectly legal? Why were they the good kind of drugs, asked Ulbricht? And more importantly, why were other drugs deemed the bad kind? Why not make them all legal? The distinction seemed arbitrary to the young college student. Ulbricht believed that people were ultimately the ones responsible for what they put in their bodies, whether it was Big Macs or marijuana. The real problem with the illegal drug trade was that it was dangerous and hard to navigate if you were an outsider. So Ulbricht set out to solve this problem. While the concept of an e-commerce site operating on the dark web for drugs and worse may seem radical, there was a new precedent emerging in Silicon Valley. There were already plenty of startups trying to capitalize on the legalization of marijuana in various states, and there were others operating in even murkier trades like assisting prostitution with pseudo-dating sites. By the time Ulbricht made it to San Francisco, Uber and Airbnb had already built their entire multi-billion-dollar business models on challenging established regulations. Ulbricht envisioned a website not unlike Yelp, where buyers and sellers could both be rated, making exchanges fairer. With more transparency, he reasoned, there would be fewer fatal overdoses and fewer people hurt in general. Ulbricht was a gifted, self-taught computer programmer, but alas, he was no crime boss. The site soon morphed from Ulbricht's original and naive vision to a haven for exchanging drug laboratory equipment, cyanide, or even computer hacking equipment. People began to sell AK-47 assault rifles, and there were even earnest discussions of selling organs such as livers and kidneys. Within 18 months, the Silk Road was processing $500,000 per week in sales, and Ulbricht himself now was worth millions in cash. If the Silk Road were valued by traditional venture capitalists, it would easily have been one of the most successful early startups in Silicon Valley history. During 2012, as Ulbricht struggled to retain control over the sprawling site, he hired the man known to him only as Variety Jones to become his de facto CEO coach. This was similar to the coaches that Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs had hired at their companies when they began growing rapidly and needed some extra steering. Ulbricht had never met Variety Jones in the real world, never had an actual conversation with him. All of their interactions were instead done online. But despite not knowing much of anything about Jones, Ulbricht valued his opinion and would pay Jones as much as $60,000 per session for his coaching. By 2013, Ulbricht trusted Jones enough to confide in him for guidance in how to get his former employee, Curtis Green, murdered. In messages later seized by the FBI, Ulbricht mulls over whether or not to order a hit on Green. After a few days, Variety Jones messaged Ulbricht that he was the one sitting in the big chair and that he was the one who needed to make the decision on any hit. Ulbricht replied that he had no problem wasting Curtis Green, and it wouldn't be the last hit he ordered. Despite Ulbricht's hope that the hit on Green would maintain order for the Silk Road, it did little, if anything, to stop Ulbricht from losing control of his empire. Hackers started knocking the Silk Road servers offline for ransom, which in turn led to others from within the site trying to blackmail Ulbricht under his guise of Dread Pirate Roberts. After Green's murder, Ulbricht spent the better part of the year hiring more hitmen to murder drug dealers and others who were trying to steal from him. But there's no evidence that any of these hits actually happened. It appears that Ulbricht and his crony Variety Jones had been taken for a ride on all these hits, paying some money up front without any murder actually taking place. Nothing went down as smoothly as it did with the killing of Curtis Green. What they didn't know was that the person they hired to murder Curtis Green in Utah was actually a DEA agent. But Ulbricht had seen photographic proof of the killing. It turns out the DEA staged Green's murder, using a can of Campbell's tomato soup in place of blood for part of the photo confirmation that was sent to Ulbricht. In messages between the agent and Ulbricht, Dread Pirate Roberts admitted to being a little disturbed when seeing the proof of his hit actually being executed. Ulbricht not only thought the hit was real, but also thought that he had got a bargain for it. Later in the year, he allegedly told another would-be assassin that he had a clean hit done for $80K, but would be willing to pay $150,000 for another. The authorities had their evidence, but they didn't bring in Ulbricht just yet. Instead, they continued to build their case against him and the Silk Road, although some of these authorities apparently decided to take a stroll down the Silk Road themselves. The DEA agent who staged the hit had learned how to navigate the Silk Road so well during his research that he and another agent from the Secret Service were able to steal $1.5 million from the site themselves until they were finally caught. But what finally put the Dread Pirate Roberts behind bars wasn't greed as much as it was haste. An early coding error on the Silk Road had exposed the IP address of a coffee shop that Ulbricht frequented in San Francisco. By this time, the FBI, the IRS, the DHS, the DOJ, and other agencies were all looking for him. The IP address led straight to Ulbricht, who was quietly running a criminal empire on his laptop at a library near his home. When Ulbricht was arrested, he had tens of millions of dollars in Bitcoin on his laptop. Millions more had been stashed on 2 thumb drives, sitting on his bedside table at the nearby apartment where he rented a room for $1,200 a month. He had only $2 in his pocket. Ross Ulbricht is currently housed in the same maximum security New York City jail as the world's most famous drug lord, El Chapo, awaiting the results of an appeal of a double life sentence. He's likely the most famous criminal in the short history of the internet. In 2021, a film version about his life titled Silk Road was released to middling reviews. The tagline of the film is, "A mastermind is a terrible thing to waste." There's no telling what Ulbricht could have achieved if he hadn't instead taken a walk down the Silk Road. But then, his methods weren't all that different from the ones employed by the founders of other tech startups. The companies we now use every day for socializing, for shopping, or for travel, not one of them has a record without a dark smudge. The biggest difference may be that while hidden on the dark web, Ulbricht's Silk Road never tried to hide that what it was doing was against the law. So what do you think? Was Ross Ulbricht right to give the people what they want? Or was he merely a crime boss with a pocket protector? Let us know in the comments below if you have the courage. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for more videos from The Graveyard Shift.